The Seminoles should dominate Charleston Southern, but will they?
You are Locked On Seminoles, your daily podcast on the Florida State Seminoles. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back into Locked On Seminoles. I am your host, Brian Smith, longtime college football writer and recruiting analyst. Thank you for making this your first listen each and every day. I truly appreciate you stopping in to talk some Noles with me. Today's show is brought to you by FanDuel. You can start the season with a big return on FanDuel. New customers can place a $5 bet and get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win that first $5 bet. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. It's time. Florida State has an inferior opponent coming into Doak Campbell. This should be a blowout. There are no exceptions to this. I don't want to hear any excuses. Flat out, start to finish, I want to see all the following things: effort, control, and dominance, period. There are no excuses in this game. This is a 1-10 team at the FCS level, not FBS, FCS level. With that in mind, today's show, we're going to go over why this Charleston Southern team is so bad. They have a few good players, but statistically, they struggle. Before we get to that, definitely going to talk about the defense and how they should be able to exploit a poor quarterback. But most importantly, and this is what we're going to lead off with, Florida State's offense. It is time that the had over a 300-yard game. It hasn't happened since they played last year. Jordan Travis's last game with the Noles before being injured. It's the last time they went over 300 yards. It has been a year. Let's see if Luke Kromenhoek and Brock Glenn have command of the offense. Let's see how the offensive line finally show some chemistry against a team that doesn't have the athletes. So let's kick off with that. Here are my 5 questions that I'm going to go into. I'm going to do 5 for the offense. Then here in about 5-10 minutes, we're going to go over the same thing with defense. Then talk about that. I'm telling you, this should be a dominant performance out the gate, and it starts with this first thing. I don't care who starts. I don't care if it's Brock or Luke. Do they both, again, they'll both play. Do they both show command of the offense, comfort? I know it's difficult to go into this from a subjective standpoint, but honestly, I don't know how else to do it, because when you're splitting reps, you're not going to have huge stats. But when there's a chance to hit an explosive down the field, do you connect? When you have a chance with an opportunity, when they're showing an overload blitz, do you change the protection and or change the play to run it to the other side? Show command. They played enough now. There's no more kid gloves. They're not really freshmen, redshirt freshmen. They need to be looked at just as another Florida State quarterback. High expectations? Yes. This is Florida State. It is time to show it. Next with that, they have also got to run the football. Both of them are good athletes, and they've shown it this year. Against Charleston Southern, if Florida State's quarterbacks don't have 40 or 50 yards rushing combined, if not more, I'd be disappointed. The Noles use an RPO offense. By golly, let's see it. They've done it some this year against better competition. It's not out of the question they could run for 100 yards between them, because both of them have the physical capabilities to hit the edge and go for 20, 30, 40 yards. I'm going to show you some stats here in a little bit that proves why Charleston Southern is likely to give those numbers up too. That being stated, you got to prove it. And of course, that means the offensive line. So we're going to talk about that in a second, but pocket awareness. I know the offensive line is going to give up some, I don't care who they're playing. They make mental errors, which is the worst. Guys coming free. It doesn't matter if it's FCS, Division III, whatever. That's a problem. Hopefully that gets better. But when that happens, do they know when to slide up? Do they throw it away? Do they take the sack? Do they throw it up for grabs? I couldn't say pocket awareness 50 times and say it enough. Both the quarterbacks have really struggled with understanding when to get rid of the football when there's pressure. That might be the thing that I look at the most from this game, regardless position or side of the football. How do Luke and Brock, again, I don't know which one's going to start, but how do they play when the pocket breaks down? It's not easy, but quarterback's not easy. Second thing with them, the post-snap reads. I know this isn't friendly to talk about young players, but we got to start seeing something. They are still making too many pre-snap determinations and come hell, come high water, finishing it out that way. Terrible idea. There was a play earlier this year where Luke missed an over route. Can't remember which team it was, but literally nobody covered the player. It would have been a touchdown. Instead, on a fourth down play through a wheel route, I believe it was to Tofili, might have been Jakai, I can't remember. But the bottom line is that guy was covered. He immediately after the snap took the football, looked that way, waited, never took his eyes off and threw it. He was never open. That cannot happen. We're to the end of the season. Coordinator has been fired. Alex Atkins is gone, etc. They've, talked about changes and this and that. Norvell's preached that they're going to get better. Let's see it. No ifs, no ands, no buts. Quarterback play must be much better in this game. If not against Charleston Southern, do we have any faith at all in the program? I mean, is it just flat out zero? Have to see it. Finally, on them, just turnover-worthy throws. This is something that's a great stat that Pro Football Focus keeps track of. There's interceptions, and then there's turnover-worthy throws. It kind of gives you an indication of where is a quarterback at in his head. Is he putting the ball in harm's way? Sometimes DBs drop passes, etc. I want to see a lot of crispness. I want to see accuracy, all that. But you're playing a team that's an inferior opponent. You should win, right? There's no reason to take a lot of overly risky passes. It's okay to punt. It's okay to throw it away. Do not put the football in harm's way. That is pivotal. Secondarily, again, O-line, I kind of hinted at this. If they don't have chemistry against Charleston Southern, are they going to have any at all this year? I mean, really, are they going to have any? It's not an easy thing to see happen where they've had all the injury. I get it. It's 2 years in a row. They've had really poor luck with injuries. Totally grasp that. But we've got guys missing basic blocks with guys that are just blitzing up the middle in the A-gap, and they just let them go by. That stuff has to change. Luke and Brock would certainly appreciate that, and so would Tofili, Sam Singleton, anybody else in the backfield. Makai Danzy, doesn't matter which one. You can't have free runners at your quarterbacks and running backs. There has to be better chemistry. Secondarily, they're bigger, they're faster, they're stronger. No excuse not to absolutely, unequivocally obliterate the front seven of an FCS opponent. Period. It is time. I think they'll have some big runs, but again, I'm most curious about the consistency. I don't want to see a 2-yard loss. Then you have a nice wall set up for Tofili on a toss sweep, and then he makes 3 guys miss and score. That's great, but it's still not showing consistency. I'll probably say that word 40 times today, just talking about the offense, but it's what's hindered the offense all year long and why they haven't had a game of 24 points or a 300-yard overall performance. They just shoot themselves in the foot. O-line has to show that. Third, for the love of mankind, I say this same thing every week, and I don't understand why it doesn't happen, just with sheer athleticism. Florida State's receiver group is not the most natural at catching the football, this, that, and the other, but they got a ton of size and a ton of speed. They've got a lot of guys that are elusive. Jakai, obviously, is extremely talented. I'm not understanding why one of these screens hasn't popped, or one of these little 4 or 5 yard short under route, just coming across the formation 2-3 yards in front, outrun somebody. It is time to see that. Charleston Southern, again, is an FCS team. They got some pretty good players, got a good linebacker, but there's no way you shouldn't have a 40, 50-yard play at some point in the first quarter, if not by the late second quarter. If it hadn't happened, there should be a lot of really angry Florida State coaches. You've got to start making more guys miss after the football is secured. Again, I know there's been a lot of drops. Florida State struggles with that. That's not in question. But once they get the ball, whether it's on a reverse, whether it's on a screen, a short pass, they've got to make guys miss. It's been one of the more disappointing things that I probably haven't talked about much this year because of the drops come up so much. And I have certainly hit that. But they just need to create more explosives after the catch. There's no excuse. Let's see what happens. To that point, I'm counting on Landon Thomas and Amari Williams to be a part of it. I know they're listed at tight end, but you could throw screens at those guys. Those are not normal freshman tight ends. They're not normal freshmen in general. Superior athletes, find a way to get them in the offense. Tight end screens are fine. Amari Williams could go 20 yards, no problem, on a tight end screen. That is not a normal kid. As a junior in high school, he ran 11-1 in the 100 meters. I don't think that's going to be a problem for somebody that weighs 225. It's going to truck somebody and it'll probably make somebody else miss. Very good athlete. Same thing with Landon. They're certainly capable. I know this isn't something that's real shocking, but Florida State's got to find a way to get Lawrence Toafili into the action and early. Not just generic up the middle runs, something creative in space. His athleticism against a team that is an FCS defense in space shouldn't be a contest. Screen, toss, RPO, line him up in the slot. I do not care. That has to happen. And then finally, this is something that I've seen many people discuss on the Locked On Seminoles YouTube page with the comment section. How about we reduce some of the penalties and just mental errors, clock management? Don't allow the clock to run down, wait too long. Again, this goes back to the awareness from Brock, the awareness from Luke. That's part of them. But on the sidelines, they got to get plays in faster too. They've had too many situations where the play clock has run down this year. They've gotten delay a game or somebody gets antsy and they false start. That needs to go away. And then just dumb holding penalties. Poor technique leads to holding penalties. That has to happen. When we come back, we're going to talk about the defensive side of the ball and why the Noles have a chance to put up monster numbers against Charleston Southern. Our friends over at 5 Hour Energy know that being a passionate football fan just isn't a hobby, it's a way of life. It takes a lot of energy to power through all-day tailgates, touchdown celebrations, or an agonizing second overtime, which is why they've created Stay in the Fan 5 Hour Energy Shot, a special flavor called Fan Fuel, the energy shot made for just us super fans, the fans who are first in the parking lot and the last to leave. We see you. So, Florida State has a chance this week, and it's kind of exciting. I'm really interested to see some of these young guys. Obviously, Luke, Brock, Amari, Landon. You got B.J. Gibson, Wayne McCoy. That's what I'm excited about. That's something to think about with 5 Hour Energy. 5 Hour Energy knows that no matter what team you root for, being it requires a fan to have a lot of heart and soul and a lot of energy. Whether you're prepping for the big tailgate or ironing your jersey, your game day to-do list is always a mile long. That's why the limited edition Stay in the Fan 5 Hour Energy Shot is here to keep you fueled throughout the season. What's your fan fuel this week? Whatever it is, do it with 5 Hour Energy. Available on 5hourenergy.com, and it's shipped nationwide. I saw far too many loafs and half-hearted efforts against North Carolina and Notre Dame the last 2 weeks from the Florida State defense. I want to say that again because this irks me to no end. It's one thing to have mental errors. It's another to lack effort. Whether it was one of the defensive linemen, and you could pick a number of them, whether it was somebody taking a horrific angle on a tackle from the secondary, Florida State's lazy attitude on defense created a lot of chunk yardage plays for the Tar Heels and Irish. If you don't want to be there, don't play. If you don't want to be there, give back your scholarship. Florida State had guys quitting in the middle of plays, just randomly. Sometimes they'd play hard on a play, and the next one they didn't. Be all in. That is without me even going through my numbered list. That's what I want to see out of everybody. This isn't a positional thing. There are more defensive guys that are about to give up than anything else. And I know they're ticked about how bad the offense is. I would be too. But you have to play hard on every snap, no matter the score. So without further ado, here's my list for the defense. 5 questions, 5 thoughts here. Defensive tackles. Are they going to play hard on every snap and dominate? When Joshua Farmer and Daryl Jackson want to go, that's as talented as an interior duo as there is in college football. But it's just so random. I was talking to somebody about the Florida State versus Notre Dame game, and my friend said something about Farmer loafing, and I'd mentioned just before Daryl Jackson loafing. It was like the 5th play of the game. You're on the first drive in doing that. You guys are trying to get to the NFL draft, and you have all the physical capabilities of doing it. I don't understand that. If I was getting ready to go to the draft, I would play hard on. I'd run to the side. Everything. Don't give the NFL any reason to consider you a lower round pick or a free agent. The touchdown run that Riley Leonard had, that's the one I saw Jackson loafing. But my buddy said there was a play in that drive where Farmer did too. I didn't go back and look, so I don't even want to look at it. You have to play hard on every snap. Now, I just threw this in because the offensive line for Charleston Southern is just whatever. Nothing great. 5 tackles for loss and 2 sacks between those two players at a minimum is the expectation. Will they get that? I'm sure they're going to rotate like KJ Sampson in and some other guys. They might be a little more liberal, and that's cool. But at least show up and show out in the first quarter half. You get a big lead, you come out, whatever. But I want to see effort between those two players. There's no reason to think they can't just go out and dominate. That should be fun. And if it's not, again, give back your scholarship, let somebody else play. It's time. I'm tired of watching loafs and half-hearted effort. That's not acceptable. Number 2, this is the most exciting thing for me in an awkward kind of way. Florida State's been banged up at linebacker, Lundy, etc. I'm curious to see what Blake Nicholson does. He'd been banged up earlier this year, and he came back. His first game back, he had 7 tackles. That's impressive. I don't care what team you play for, what your season's like. Obviously, Florida State struggled. I was like, okay, he's got his head in the game. He's obviously back to being healthy, and he's producing. Well, now he's going up against an opponent where, it's not like Notre Dame's interior O-line, which that's a whole nother animal. The difference between Notre Dame's interior O-line and Charleston Southern is between here and the moon. I think he can get in the gaps. You can see 2 or 3 tackles for loss for Blake Nicholson. He's shot out of a cannon when he reads something. I'm curious, kind of like the quarterbacks, how does he develop in the middle of a play? How does he adjust? Does he make post-snap reads as a linebacker? Like, okay, I thought that was a run, it's play action. How quickly does he get back in his drop? Does he change his blitz route if he has to peel off and take a running back? All the mental stuff, because physically that kid's a really good football player. Can't teach the speed and the lateral ability. I'm very high on Blake Nicholson. No reason to think he's not going to be one of the best Noles over the next couple of years. The sophomore has the goods. This is a game where he should go off. Will he? And I'm curious, just as an additional, and this isn't necessarily good or bad, but do they use him more on the edge to blitz, or are they going to drop him more in coverage? Are they going to use him a lot on some stunts, doing just some different things with the D lineman? Really just think that's kind of the fun part of football, because there's so many options when you have an athlete like Blake. He's a really good football player. Defensive ends. I think this is an important thing to talk about moving forward. You got 2 experienced players now. You got Marvin on one side, you got Pat on the other. My buddy was super low on Pat after he kind of graded that game. He went through the film, said Pat takes way too many plays off. I don't disagree, but he's mostly disappointed in him as an edge defender against the run. I've been saying it all year, and there's part of the problem last year. Florida State doesn't do a good enough job of snuffing out what the opponent's going to do, forcing the quarterback to stay in the pocket. And then, of course, you got Farmer and Jackson, among other players in the middle. They're really talented up front. You're going to be able to push the pocket beyond 3 seconds, even when they're not going super hard, because they're so athletic and so massive. You're going to give teams problems. But when you don't set the edge, it doesn't work that well. This isn't an elite running quarterback they're going against. And again, I'll get to stats, but he has 4 touchdowns and 7 interceptions, unless there's a quarterback change, whatever. He's not very good. Florida State should, keywords should, be able to hammer them. They should be able to keep him in the pocket and not only create sacks and tackles for loss, stuff like that. This is a game where you're going to be able to surround him, and I'll get to this in a second, but they need to get some deflections and easy play. It was September 28th, they got a fumble recovery. It was the 14th, I believe it was, against Cal that they got an interception. Like, they've got 3 turnovers all year. They're dead last in the NCAA. Dead last in turnovers at Florida State. This is a game where you should get at least 1 gift, and the defensive ends are going to be a big part of that. Corralling your opponent is massive. Number 4, I just talked about turnovers. Minimum, they should create 2. I'm not going to harp on this anymore. Just kind of went over it. But will you get at least 2 against a team that's just terrible? They're 1-10 at the FCS level. Pride is on the line here. You should stomp this team. If you do not, that is on you. If you play your keys, listen to your coaches, and just kind of go through the basics here, and play hard, you're going to get at least one gift turnover because they're going to make something stupid happen to themselves. Charleston Southern shoots themselves in the foot even more than Florida State does as an offense. That being stated, 2 is a kind of a conservative thing. If you got 4 or 5 in this game, it wouldn't be shocking. The effort will dictate the result. Finally, can you hold them to 75 yards rushing or less? Again, they don't have a mobile quarterback. They've got a running back that's pretty good. I'll talk about him in a minute. But I think 75 yards, especially when you consider sacks, go against rushing total, is really not that hard. If Florida State can't do that, there's something wrong. And to be honest with you, I'm not thinking Charleston Southern should get 50. So we'll see what happens with that. When I come back, I'm going to talk about a couple key matchups and why Florida State should totally dominate this team. That is next at Locked On Seminoles. Get ready to tackle NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Because right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of a ball game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. This show is also brought to you by Game Time. Have you downloaded the Game Time app yet? If you have not, this is one of the easiest ways to not only get tickets, but to do it quickly and for less. They have an option called Game Time Picks, which filters out all the fluff and all the stuff that you have to go through searching for something. It brings up the opportunities right to you inside the app on your phone in front of your face. So with this opportunity, there's one other thing that I personally like about Game Time. It's the ability to see the field or the stage, whatever it may be, at a concert, at a play, at a football game, baseball game, whatever it is you're trying to do. You can do it with Game Time, and you can see it right from your phone. Once you click on a ticket, the view is there. That's great. I think Game Time does an awesome job with that. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time Picks. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and use code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game time. Charleston Southern stinks. It is time to prove just how bad they really do stink. I didn't know anything about them other than that they were really bad this season. And then I looked up their record, and here are a few of the numbers. These do not lie. I talked about their ability to make some opportunities work for them. It's kind of hard. They've got a running back that I like, Octavius Eisen, but he's only had one game he really went off. That was October 5th. 29 carries for 229 yards is impressive. But since then, like his last 3 games, and I think this team's kind of on quit watch, he's been under 50 yards. Again, he ran for 229 earlier this season, but in the last 3 games, each of them, he's under 50. How hard is this line blocking for him? Talented player, but he ain't got much going for him. The guy that scares me the most, that has, in my opinion, the best opportunity to score against the Noles is Chris Roan, 6'3", 195, so he's a big kid. In his last 2 games, he has 9 catches, 227 for 25.2 and 3 scores. If you let him get past you, use poor technique, get caught in a situation on a jump ball, maybe he just out-hustles you, he can score. He may be their most physically gifted player. It's debatable, but that's a guy that Florida State has to be wary of. He has the measurables to be an NFL player at 6'3", 195, and he's experienced. The Noles have to be at least somewhat aware of what's going on with him. I don't know how the quarterback situation is going to work out. I would not be surprised if multiple played. Rob McCoy is possibly going to be the guy. I mentioned him earlier, 59%, so he's not that great. 4 touchdowns, 7 picks. I don't expect them to be that good on offense. Is it going to be ability to make a lot of plays on D? It depends on your perspective. They've got a player at each level that's solid, so we'll talk about them. Darius Bell is a defensive end. He's got 5 sacks, 42 tackles. Okay. He's 6'2", 225, though. I mentioned earlier Florida State being able to run right at him and create some big plays. They should be able to push him around. He might get a sack in this game. It's not like Florida State's great at pass protection, but they have to at least be able to run him over. First down and 10 runs is something I talk about all the time. For the love of mankind, you have to be able to run at the 225-pound FCS defensive end. Show some pride. Linebacker, what a wild name, Steve Zayakowski, 5'10", 205. He's a little undersized, but he's got 72 tackles. He's not a guy that's going to be out of position much. You're going to have to earn it. Not big. Again, you have a chance to run at him, but he's also got 3 sacks, so he understands circumstance and how to get to the QB. Finally, they've got a really unique safety. He's got 3 sacks and 56 tackles, 6'1", 185. He's got decent size for a safety. I'm curious, Davion Williams, that's a player to kind of watch. I don't think that their defense is going to be able to do much against Florida State's offense. They've got 23 sacks. And these are the numbers I'm about to get are all FCS level. That's 47th in the country. Passing, they're giving up 197 yards a game. That's 39th in the FCS, and that's their best stat. Third down defense stinks at 71st in the FCS, 40.8. Florida State struggles on third downs, but if you can't hit big numbers against an FCS defense that struggles, come on. There should be consistency there. Total defense at the FCS level is 348. That's 50th. So I don't see any reason to think they should struggle. And they're even 57th in rush, 150.8 yards per game given up. So again, will Florida State dominate the competition? I don't care about winning. They need to show heart. They need to show effort. They need to show domination, start to finish. If this program is going to start turning around, it begins with this game. You probably think, well, this is Charleston. That's the whole point. The key to every program is effort. You can't teach effort. That's a player thing. Florida State's going to win this game, but do they win it 24-10 or do they win it 42-7? You know what I mean? Like, I don't want to late touchdown in this game to make it a 2-score game because Florida State's offense is struggling that bad. No excuse here. From start to finish, Florida State needs to dominate. No way around it. You can find me at FB Scout _Florida. And you can find this show anywhere you get your podcast. You want to get it on Odyssey, if you want to get it on Apple, if you want to get it anywhere, you can find it. And obviously on YouTube. I truly appreciate you stopping and talk some Noles with me. And now go check out Locked On ACC. Everybody have a good one. I will see you on Tuesday.